time where we don't.
Okay. So you're gonna have to,
Put that down.
yeah, I'm gonna put it in front of them. My computer's like. Okay, so this is Amelie St-Pierre from GenOvis, who's going to do a presentation on Canadian Genetic Evaluation Program for Dairy Sheep. So take it away, Amelie. You've got some people in the room here. Ready for your presentation, whenever you're ready.
Perfect, thank you, Erin. So I'm happy to be here today to do a presentation about the Canadian Genetic Evaluation Program for Dairy Sheep. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to present it to a dairy producer in Ontario. My name is Amelie St-Pierre. I'm doing the technical support and the development for the GenOvis program for the CEPOQ, that is a research center located in Quebec for sheep. So today I will do an introduction of the dairy module. We will talk a bit about the data collection. So what are the information required to be part of the dairy module? What are the breeding value you can have when you are a member from the GenOvis program? We will discuss a bit about the selection and culling decision. I will present you also a tool we have that is called a mapping planner that can help you to do a breeding plan. And I will end the presentation with a few slides on the new dairy report to come for dairy producers. So the dairy module was developed by Dr. Larry Shefford. Larry Shefford is a professor emeritus and a renowned geneticist. He is now retired from the Center for Genetic Improvement of Livestock located in the University in Guelph in Ontario. This is the same geneticist that do the dairy genetic model for dairy cattle in Canada. The program was developed by a research project that were done in 2013-2014, in which 9 Canadian farms, so 8 from Quebec and 1 from Ontario, participate. The purpose of this research project was to collect dairy data and then created a genetic evaluation module for the dairy sheep producer. Who can enroll within the dairy sheep program? So all purebred dairy sheep, you don't have to have registered animal to be part of the GenOvis program for dairy sheep, and also any dairy crosses. So it is not an obligation to be a purebred registered animal as we see for the dairy model for goat species, for example. So any producer that have dairy sheep that would like to enroll within GenOvis, that's possible to do it. All the data are provided by the dairy producer. So it is a producer that sends to GenOvis the lambing data, the milk weight, the milk component. There is no need to have a technician to come at the farms to take some sampling. So all the data can be collected by the producer itself. GenOvis will generate 22 EBVs for producer. These 22 EBVs are related to traits for milk production. We don't have at this point any EBVs for other conformation, but it is something we would like to have in the future. And we also provide 2 dairy selection indexes. One is a production indexes that is used to increase the milk production, and we have another selection indexes to increase a component production, so to increase the butter, fat, and protein. And I will give you more detail later in the presentation. To give you an overview of the participation, in 2022, we have six producers from Quebec, only 1 producer from Ontario, 8 producers from United States, and 1 producer from Ecuador that participate into the GenOvis program for the dairy sheep. We are talking about 1,500 ewes with milk records, 53,000 milk weight records, and 4,400 milk component records. This graph shows you the participation over the years. So as far as we can see, the blue bar represents the number of breeders enrolled within the program, and the yellow curve represents the Canadian producer that provide information or milk record each year. So at the beginning of the program, all the producers enroll into the GenOvis program were also Canadian producer, and they all provide data. Then we see that in 2016, some stopped to be, they are still part of GenOvis, but they do not provide data each year. In 2019, we start enrolling some US producer. This is why we see an increase in the membership for the GenOvis program. And we see that the line for the Canadian producer, it's stable in time. So at this point, we have about 7 Canadian producers who send data in the program, and all of the other data we collect within the program are from US producer. So there is a large room to have more Canadian producer enroll within the GenOvis Dairy Sheep program. The slide is to show you how was the data collection over the years. So we can see that on the orange curve represent the milk component records we have within the database. So at the beginning of the program, we see that we have a lot of component because the component was paid by the program. Then we see a decrease because of the cost related to do milk sampling component. But what is interesting is we see an increase that started in 2020, and still continue to increase. That is mostly explained by the dairy producer from United States that record milk component within the program. So we are very happy to see that the number of component is still increasing. And another amazing thing we can see about this graph is the blue line represent the number of milk weight we have recorded each year within our program. So we see that it was relatively stable in time, and then we see an increase in 2020. And in 2021, we see a huge increase within the data collection regarding a milk weight. It is not explained by the fact that we have very huge or large flock coming from USA. There are flocks similar to what we have in Quebec. It is mostly explained by 1 or 2 producers that start sending daily weights collected on the farm. So they have some GenOvis members that have a system like Le Panazou, for which it is very easy to collect milk weight on a daily basis, and then they start sending a lot of data each year. This is why we see an increase like this on our database. And that's great because that brings more information onto the genetic program to calculate the breeding evaluation. Using the information we have recorded within GenOvis, we are able to create a table like this to present the breed performance. What we can notice on this tab, first of all, is that a large proportion of the animal we have in the dairy population within GenOvis come from high percentage of East region animal, followed by the Lacon breed. So that's the 2 main breed or main breed composition we have in our database at this point. You can also notice that the crossbred has a large number of animals, and it is mainly explained by the fact that the US breeder use East region and Lacon as crosses to produce commercial animal to produce milk, but they also use other breed as the Asaf and Awazi that are included in the crossbred at this point. What is interesting about those kind of table is more producer we have, more data we have, more accurate will be the data we can present. And it is a tab we would like to eventually produce and publish on our website for producer. Then you can ask yourself if it is possible to increase your performance using a genetic evaluation program. That's a good question. I have here a chart that was done by Lynn Sensen from Glendale Shepherd in Washington. She used that slide in her presentation of its business. So basically what happened with that flock is that they try over the years to increase the milk production of the ewes. They try many things. They weren't able to produce more milk per ewe. Even if they increased the flock, they weren't able to produce more milk. They try some kind of change in the management, nothing. There is no increase as expected. And in 2019, they start enrolling into GenOvis, and they also start using artificial insemination. And then using the genetic program, they kept the better animal that come from artificial insemination. And by the combination of having a better genetic, but also having a good management, good feed, following of your animal, they were able now to produce more milk, even if they are less ewe. So that's a big increase in that case of that specific producer. I show you the slide to explain you that yes, it's possible to increase your production based on genetic, but you need also to combine with good management. It is not all the producer that will have this kind of increase within a short period of time, but you see that if you select better genetic and then you have good management, you are able to increase your production and become more profitable. This graph shows you what happens with the genetic value, milk yield for first lactation and later lactation. So the blue line is the trend related to the first lactation, and the orange curve is the EBVs milk yield that is related to second lactation and further lactation. Each dot is like the average breeding value of animal born within the year. So what we can see on this graph is as the program started in 2013, 2014, and the producer enrolled into the program start to select animal based on EBVs, we see a good increase for this EBVs. So doing selection based on breeding value can bring you to increase the genetic level of your flock. So yes, it's possible to do an increase in the performance of your animal using the genetic. I want to give you few information about the membership for the GenOvis program. So any dairy members from GenOvis have the web access. So you can access your data in any time, all the week long. We would like also to publish top animal dairy for dairy breed. So at this point, we have only it for meat breed, but we would like also to have list of animals that are the top for the dairy sheep also. So this kind of list could help you to find who are the good genetic when you are looking to buy some animals. The member also access a mapping module that is used to simulate the breeding between the ewes and the rams and have quickly the inbreeding level of the progeny to plan the breeding. They have also a lot of reports available for the reproducer. The breeding value are updated on a weekly basis. And we have also a new report to come to follow production data, and I will show you some example at the end of this presentation. You can also have tools to select replacement. So we have a report that estimates the young animal breeding value before they have any milk records. And we also develop tools according to our member needs. So for example, we develop a tools to convert electronic scale file. So for the breeder that use the Pegasus system, we have now a tool that is very easy for him to take the file from its scale and convert it to be able to upload all those data within GenOvis. And we are willing to develop any other tool that may help other members to use our program. The membership is an annual fee of $180 plus tax for any Canadian producer. And there is no charge that apply more if you send electronic data. All the support and everything is included into the membership. The only other fees that may apply is if you want to report by mail or if you want us to record information within GenOvis, but using paper, we need to type information within the system. There are fees that apply, but anytime you send electronic file, anytime you access data by yourself, anytime you have question on the program, it's all included into the membership. Now let's talk about the data collection. So the first thing to do is to record the animal inventory. You have a picture of the information that are required to be able to produce the animal inventory. So we need a unique identification for all your animal. It could be a tattoo, it could be a barn tag, it could be a RFID. So we are flexible in which information you can use to create an animal ID, but it's very important that each animal has a unique ID within our database. Then we need you to indicate us the breed of your sheep. So if you are purebred, that's pretty easy, but if for commercial flock, we need to know what's the percentage of the dairy breed within the cross. And we try to do it as accurate as you can in terms of percentage to define the ewes and the rams you have within the flock, because the breed composition of the lambs will be calculated automatically based on information we have about the parents. And then we need a birth date or at least a year of birth to know the age of the ewe. If you have information about the parents of the ewe and the ram, that's always interesting to add this information within the program to create links between animals and also with other flock. But if you don't have this information, the main information we need is an ID, the breed, and the birth date. At the time the inventory is recorded, you need us to provide your lambing data. Lambing data is a requirement even if you are a dairy producer, because we are looking at the production of the animal, but we need basic information to be able to evaluate the production of your ewes. So the main important information to record within our system is a lamb ID. If all the lambs you have go to the market because you don't keep any replacement, we do not really matter about the lamb ID. So we can create fake or fictive ID for the lambs, a unique ID, because we need it within the program. Perhaps if you are keeping any replacement from your flock, it's very important to use an ID that you will use when the same animal will become a ewe within your flock to keep a track of this animal. So the lamb ID is very important in case you keep replacement. Otherwise, we can create identifier just to be able to create animal within our system. The birth date is a really important information because it's the starting point of the milk curve. So it's very important to have a birth date to be able to draw the milk curve of each of the ewes. Then the sex of the lambs, the litter size is also very important because it has an impact in the milk production. So the litter size is an information that is used within the breeding module to calculate the breeding value of animals. It's also important to know if the dams raise the lambs or if they are all bottle fed. And again, the parents' ID are very important, mainly if you are keeping replacement from those lambs as reproductive stock, to be able to have good pedigree information and also all information on relative on this animal, because it has an influence on the breeding value that will be calculated. Then you can add the disposal information. And you can also collect a birth weight, a winning weight, and a post-winning weight. They are not a requirement to get the dairy evaluation. Perhaps if in time you would like to increase both the milk production of the ewe, but also the growth performance of the lambs, this is the kind of information we will need in our system to be able to target you the ewes that will produce more milk, but also fast growing lambs. Now that the inventory is recorded, we have the lambing information, it's time to record the milk weights. So you must measure all the metering done within a 24-hour period of time. This means that if you milk once a day, you meter once a day. If you are milking 2 times a day, you need to meter 2 times a day. If you are milking 3 times a day, we need 3 milk weights. So it's very important to measure all the weight or all the milk that is produced on a 24-hour period of time. If you record only 1 metering, but you do twice, we cannot use your information in our genetic program. It's possible to record up to 3 metering, but most of the producers will have 1 or 2 milk white per day. The milk white are not required to be supervised, so you can collect it by your own. You don't need to have a technician that come at the barn to take the measurement. It's possible to do it if you want. So in that case, we indicate that those weights are supervised, but you can also collect all the data by your own. We also need you to indicate the metering time. So there are 2 ways to do it. You can indicate the start and the end time. So when you start milking the entire group, when you stop milking the group, and what's the weight of the animal. So you do it for each metering you do within a 24-hour period. or if you are the ability to collect easily the time each ewe is milking, you can just indicate the time she was milking at each metering. So that's the two way you can send us the data of the time where the metering was done. The milk component is very highly recommended for producer, but you can be part of GenOvis even if you don't do any milk component sampling. So you can provide only milk weight and do selection for milk production. We recommend to do the sampling for milk component because we want, yes, to produce more milk, but we want also to produce more fat, more protein, more lactose. So it's better to have the milk component, but it's possible to start only with milk weights and you can have the component later because we know that the cost is quite expensive to do the milk component. The three main components that we see for most of the producers are the fat, the protein, and the somatic cell count. The US producer always have the lactose, but it is not all the Canadian producer that will have this information. And you have also the possibility to record the urea and the BHB. Now, the first question you may have is how to meter. So we don't have a list of scale that are authorized to do the sampling. We decided to start the program and be flexible. So we accept any way you can meter the data at the time that you have accurate data and you are consistent in your metering. Most of our Canadian users will have Waikato scale that are very good to do metering of the milk. But it is not a requirement to have this specific equipment. So what we need you to do when you meter is to be consistent in the way you meter. We expect to have like the same person that do the metering to be sure of the consistency of the data collected. And the most important thing is to have the same protocol and same way to do it for the entire lactation of the ewes. So we need that all the ewes during the lactation be measured the same way to have accurate comparison between the metering. Regarding the component sampling, when to sample, most of the producer will meter and sample once a month. Other will meter like once a month and get sampling every 2 months. So it is up to you depending what you want to do with the flock. For sure, more component sampling we have, better or accurate will be the breeding value, but we need a minimum of 2 or 3 sampling for component when possible per lactation per ewe. So you can target 2 and 3, but if you can do more, that's even better. Where sampling the sample, so for Canadian producers, sample must be sent to Lactanet, and for the US producer, they send all the sampling at the same lab. It's a Rocky Mountain DHIA lab located in USA. So it's important again to have all the sampling done at the same place to have accurate information to provide to the GenOvis program. Then the main recommendation, even if you don't do any component sampling, regarding the milk weight, we need a minimum of 4 metering per lactation per ewe. So we need at least you to measure 4 times the milk production of each of the ewe you have for during the entire lactation. And to show you what this looks like, we see on this specific graph, you have like light blue dot that show you what's referred to 4 metering. So we see that with only 4 metering, that is like the minimum we have to draw the curve. It's not that many points to be able to draw a curve. And you realize that if we have only 2 points, the curve will not be that accurate. By comparison, you have another curve here that show when you are taking milk weight every week. We see that we have a lot more depth and the milk curve is more easy to draw. So the minimum you have to keep in mind is trying to have at least 4 metering per ewe per lactation. But if you are able to do more, that will be better for your breeding evaluation. The timing of sending and receiving the data. So you can send the data in any time during the year. You can send it after each metering if you want. You can send it all at the end of the year. It's very up to the producer depending how you want to follow your data. And usually you will receive the result on the next week. So if I receive your data or your submit data this week, I will upload that information within GenOvis and you can access your new breeding value by next Monday. Depending on the quantity and the quality of the data, sometimes it can take up to 2 or 3 weeks to complete all the data entry, but most of the time it is done within 1 or 2 weeks. And you can access the result by your own in any time. If we are talking about the breeding value, what's an EBV? So an EBV is an estimation of the genetic value of an animal. The animal having the higher EBVs for a given trait have the highest probability to produce superior progeny for that trait. An EBV is a value you can use to do fair comparison between animals. So it is not a numeric indicator of how much an animal will produce for sure within your flock, but it is an indication of if we place all the animals within the same environment, which one will have better production than others. So that may be a number you can use to compare animals within the flock, with other flocks, across the breed. So that's the purpose of an EBVs. And we have one EBVs that is calculated or estimated for each evaluated trait. An EBV is much than just an adjusted weight because it takes into account a lot of factors. So you have the breed, the age of lambing, the year of lambing, but also the relative performance. As a result, the information you got from an EBVs is a number that you can use to do fair comparison, to compare animals together. So if you want to compare, for example, a ewe in first parity with a ewe that is in third parity, you are able to do it using that number. If you want to compare animals that have different days in milk, you can use it from different breed, from different flock. So it is really a number that is computed to help you to compare animals together and figure out which one will provide you the best genetic improvement for your flock. You have here an example of a result sheet for GenOvis members. So you always have the same information. You have an EBV for each of the traits evaluated. You have the accuracy related to that EBV. You have the percentile or the ranking of the animal. And for each of the trait, you have an EBV for the first parity or the first lactation, but you also have another EBVs for the second parity or the later lactations. Let's start with the EBV. So an EBV is an estimated breeding value. It is expressed in the same unit as the trait. So if we are talking about milk yield, we are talking about kilograms. It could be a positive value, but it could also be a negative value depending on the genetic merit of the animal. And for most of the trait, the higher value means a better genetic merit for the specific animal. So it is a number you can use to compare animals together. The main evaluated trait we have within GenOvis are the milk yield, the fat yield, the protein yield, and the lactose yield. For those 4 traits, they are all expressed in kilograms, and we are looking for higher number. So when we select animal and want to get improvement, we are looking for you that will produce more milk, more fat, more protein, and more lactose per lactation. We have also the EBV persistency that is very interesting. It is used to select the ewes that will maintain a reasonably constant milk yield. For the specific EBV, we are using a number from 0 to 1, and we are looking for higher number. So the ewes that will have higher number for the EBV persistency will have a better milk production in time. So they will maintain a better milk production over the time. We have also 3 traits that are expressed in percentage. So we have the average daily fat, we have the average daily protein, and we have the average daily lactose. So all those traits are expressed in percentage. And also we are looking for higher number. So we are looking for you that will have higher percentage of fat, higher percentage of protein, and higher percentage of lactose. And the last three EBVs are more particular because we are not necessarily looking for higher value. The EBV somatic cell score, for the specific one, we want to choose animal that will have EBV close to 0. Why? Because the animal with higher somatic cell score will probably have subclinical mastitis, and we don't want to select those ones. And the ones that have very low score are generally related to animals with lower immune response and are more likely to develop mammary gland infection. So if you want to select using this specific trait, you must target the animal that the EBVs is close to 0. We have also two others EBV that are less used by producer, but were there because they were in the original research project. So we have the milk urea nitrogen that is used to measure the urea level in milk. And the idea is to identify if you have too much protein in your feeding. And you have the EBV BHB that is used to measure the ketone in milk of dairy sheep. And again, it's for the detection of subclinical ketosis and negative energy balance. So these two EBVs is not really used by producer, but if you are interested to use it, that's possible to record information and get EBVs for those two traits. We said at the beginning that the GenOvis program provides 22 EBVs for producer for selection. So you have 11 EBVs or evaluate trait for the parity 1 or the first lactation. And you have 11 EBVs for later lactation that are exactly the same trait. That give you the chance or the tools to select the animal that will have better production at first lactation, or to select the animal that will have better performance at later lactation. It is interesting because it gives you more flexibility in the way you can do selection for your animal. What we expect to do over time is to combine those two EBVs together to have only one EBVs per trait, to make it easier for producer, but to get improvement on both. So by selecting, for example, on milk yield, we would like to have an EBVs that is unique, not for parity 1, another one for parity 2, but only one EBVs for milk yield that will provide you an improvement for the first lactation, but also the later lactation. At this point, it is all separated and producer have 22 EBVs to look at, but it is something we would like to simplify in the next years. Now that you have talked about the EBVs, that is the value to use to do comparison between animals, you have also another information that is the accuracy. So the accuracy reflects the number of information we have to estimate the breeding value of an animal. It is a number that ranges from 0 to 100. 0 means we have no information. So in that specific case, we can see that Pocket has an EBV milk yield at second parity that is estimated, but we see that the accuracy is at 0. This means that this specific animal has milk record only for one lactation. She has a breeding value that is estimated for the later lactation that is based on its parents and relative performance, but she don't have any record at this point. What indicates the accuracy, if the number is low, it just means that we can expect in time when we will have new information about milk weight or component information for the second lactation and later lactation of Pocket, we can expect that the breeding value can vary more in time. It can stay stable, it can get higher, it can get lower depending on the performance of Pocket. So the accuracy is just an indication if the EBV of an animal will remain stable in time or will move more when we will add new information. If we compare with Snowdrop, that is at 75%, we can expect that even if we send new information for Snowdrop, the EBV value will remain stable over the time. So it is an information we can look at, but it is not the most important. And the last information we have about an EBV is the percentile or the ranking. So the percentile will rank the EBV within a big group. It is a number that is from 1 to 99, and the higher the number is, the better the animal is. So on the report, the animal that are in the top 10 for that specific trait will appear in blue to indicate you that they are very good for that trait. So the percentile is very interesting to see what if a value of an EBV value is good or not compared to where ranked animal. So for example, we see Pocket here, she's at 32%, so she's below the average of the breed. But we have other value as 1.41 is at 51%. This means that the average is 15, so 51 is very close to the average. So it helps you to figure out if an EBV value is good or not. Perhaps the main problem we have with the percentile in dairy sheep is a percentile rank animal within a breed group. So if you have a purebred flock, you can use it. If you have animal that have the same breed composition, even if they are crossbred, you can use it to rank animal. But if, for example, within your flock, you have high percentage of East Friesian and other animals that are high percentage of Lacone, you cannot use a percentile to compare the animal because the ranking is done for the entire group. So the ranking is not done only within your flock. It is not done for the entire population. It is done for a specific breed group. So if you have different breed composition within your flock, do not take care about the percentile column, but use the EBVs to compare animals, and the higher number are the one you must target in your selection. Just to explain you a bit more what's a percentile. So you have here a picture that shows you sheep. So imagine that all those sheep are from, for example, high percentage of East Friesian. So within the population, we will have a lot of animals that will have average performance that will be close to 50. So 50 is the average. You will have some few animals that will have very low performance. So they will have low percentile, like close to 1%. And you will have animals that will perform very better than the average of the breed that will be closer to 99%. So basically what we want to do is to try to select the animals that are better than the average of the breed. So if you are looking for percentile, always look for higher numbers. 99s are very top, but any animal that are above 50 are better than the average of the breed. But that's so much information. You have 22 EBVs, you have the accuracy, you have the percentile. Is it possible to make it more simple to do selection? The answer is yes. So we have selection index. That is a tool you can use to do selection more easily. A selection index combines different EBV to select on several traits at the same time, but based on a unique value. So we have a value named the selection index, and this number will help you to do selection. And at the same time, you will improve several traits. You don't have to look at each specific trait, but just use the selection index number to get improvement on several traits. We have two dairy indexes. They are indexes in value of 100 for dairy producer. So what's an index value of 100? It's pretty easy. It looks like a percentile. So again, you have here a representation. So imagine that this representation is all the ewes we have in our dairy population recorded within GenOvis. So it do not matter about the breed, it's the entire population here. So again, most of the animal will have average performance. 100 index point is the indication of the average. All animal that will be above 100 point of index will have better performance than the average. And all animals that are below 100 have lower performance than the average. What is interesting with this kind of index is that a large proportion of the animal will rank between 75 to 125 point of index. So probably most of your flock will be in index point between 75 to 125. This means also that only few animals will have very low, so only 2.5 animal will be below 50 point of index, and only 2.5% will also be better than 150 point of index. So when you do selection, by looking at the number of index point, you have a good idea if the animal is in the average or is better than the average. And if you want to increase your genetic merit for your flock or your genetic gain, you must select animals that are better than the average. The closer you are to 150, the faster the genetic gain will be. So we have a first index that we name the PROD index or the production index. It is an index that is used for producer who meters, but does not collect component information. So basically, if you take only milk weight, you will use this index to be able to select on two traits at the same time. So you will select on the milk yield for later lactation, for which we put more emphasis within the index because we want to improve more that trait. But we also include a small percentage on the EBV milk yield at first lactation because we want at the end selecting on this indexes views that will produce more kilogram of milk at first and later lactation due to their genetics. So what happens when we select on the production index is instead of having your animal and trying to figure out which one are the better on both indexes or both EBVs, sorry, we calculate you another value that is a value in base 100, in which you can see which animal in your flock have the better genetic merit to improve those two traits at the same time. And by using the number, we see that Snowbird and Mark are close to the average of the breed, and you have Bluebell and Snowdrop that are very top for the breed. So the higher the number is for that genetic index, the better the genetic merit of this animal is. Again, you have a percentile that can help you to rank animal. It's the same thing as a percentile we see for EBVs. Percentile will be useful if all animals are from the same breed composition. Otherwise, do not use it and use the PROD index to be able to rank all your animals within your flock. So the top animal are the one with the higher value. The second selection index we have is the comp index or the component index. So for the specific indexes, half of the index is for fat. So we want to produce more kilogram of fat. And the half of the index is for the protein. Again, we put more emphasis on later lactation than the first lactation, but we take into account those two traits. And the same thing for the protein. We'll put more emphasis on the second lactation and less emphasis on the first lactation. So again, if you want to do selection on animal and you have 4 EBVs to take into account, it is not that easy. So we use these 4 EBVs and we calculate you another information that is called the component index. Again, it is an index value of 100. An animal close to 100 are close to the average of the breed. Animal that rank close to 150 are very top for the breed. So the higher number you have here, the better genetic merit is the animal for a combination of those 4 traits. That's really the purpose of the genetic index, is to be able to select using one number, but to improve many traits at the same time. You have a percentile value that can be used if you are all in the same breed or breed group, but if you have different breed composition within the flock, just focus on the index number and look for higher number. By selecting on the component index, you will select the ewe that will produce more kilogram of butter fat and protein at first and also at later lactation due to their genetic. And we can also expect that if the production of protein and fat increase in terms of kilograms, you will also improve your milk production. Okay, now if we talk about replacement selection, so the EBVs and the selection index are the tool to use to do selection for animal. So if you want to do selection of animal with higher genetic merit, what we suggest is to get the information about your animals. Then if you are just recording milk weight and have no component analysis, you use the PROD index. If you are using any, if you are doing milk sampling and have component information, you will use a component index to do the selection. So you can sort the animal the top to the bottom, and the animal with the higher numbers are the one that will have the higher expected genetic merit. Then you can go on the barn, do other selection on conformation, on any other criteria you may have to do your selection. But you have a tool here that is pretty easy to use, that is a breeding value that will indicate you among the replacement you have within your flock, which one have the better potential to be better milk productive than other animal you have within the flock. For young animals that don't have any milk record at this point, we are able to produce breeding value or expected breeding value based on the average of their parents. So basically what we do the average of the parents to generate the breeding value we expect. And based on this information, we are able to calculate a product index and a component index that you can use for selection. It is not perfect because it is an estimation. For sure, when the animal will have its first record, the breeding value will be calculated based on information you will record within GenOvis. But at least you have a starting point and you have the first information to do selection based on data. So that's a very good tool to do selection of young animal and to target the one that have the better potential to have good production within your flock. Regarding a culling decision, usually we recommend to cull based on the age of the ewe, the productivity, so the ewe that get older and have lower productivity, or anytime you have other health trouble or something like that, you will cull the ewe based on this information first. You don't need to cull all the ewes that have negative value. So to get a good improvement in a genetic point of view, it is better to select good replacement than trying to culling animal with bad value. It could be a criteria you have to cull animal when you need to cull animal, but usually we recommend first to cull on low productivity, old animal, trouble for health, trouble of other. And if you have space also to cull animal, you can look at lower value, but it is not where you will get the better improvement for your flock. It's really by keeping animal with higher breeding value, given the fact that the genetic gain is cumulative, so the next generation will be even better than the actual generation. So by doing a good selection and by removing animal with low productivity, you will increase your genetic gain and you will also increase your productivity. Here's a simple slide on the tool we call the matting module that is very interesting for producer when you are trying to plan your mat. So in the matting module is available for our GenOvis member. It calculates easily the inbreeding level of progeny. So you just have to have a list of the ewes and the ram you would like to mat. And then you get easily the inbreeding value of the progeny and see if it fit or not. You can also add any rams you have, you don't have in your flock, but you are looking to purchase, or you can do also the same process if you are looking to buy some ewe lambs and you want to see if it fit with your rams. At the time the animal are within GenOvis, you are able to get access to the inbreeding level of the progeny. So as a reminder, the EBVs and the dairy selection indexes help in selection, can be used for culling, for replacement, for breeding plan. It's the tool to use to do fair comparison between animals. We recommend to use the selection index to do selection because you select on many traits at the same time. So if you are not doing any milk analysis, use the PROD index or the production index. And if you are doing milk analysis, use the component index. We also recommend to exchange intake with other flock. So I will explain you in a few minutes what I'm talking about, but create links with other flock will give strength to the genetic program. And it's very important to have good records. Metering is the first step. If you want to know if you get improvement in time, you need to measure what you are doing now and what you were doing in the past year and see if it's an upgrade or not for the production. And you have the DSNA that is a reference for dairy producer that where you can find a lot of information about the dairy production. So the two ways you have to improve your genetic selection is by adding new record within the genetic module. So as far as you are able, at least for milking weight during the lactation, if you are able to do more, but also record information on later lactation. And it's important to add the record, but also quality record. It is important to take accurate measurement when you provide information to GenOvis. And when we are talking about doing links between animals, can be by selling some rams. So flock 1 can sell a ram in flock 2. So we now have progeny from flock 2 that can be compared to other animal within flock 2. And then the flock 2 can also sell animal to the flock 1. So it could be exchanged by a ram, but that could be also exchanged by you. So the idea is to have animals from different flocks that produce within other flocks to be able to compare the performance of those animals in different environments. And then the genetic program is better to calculate breeding value in different environments. In case you are like the flock 4, so you have a flock and you have no connection with other GenOvis breeder, it's also possible to use the GenOvis program because it will rank you accurately which animal are the top within your flock. So you can do selection replacement and increase your genetic level. The only difference with the other flocks is when you want to compare yourself with others, the information isn't that accurate because we don't have progeny or performance that come from your animal in another farm. So at the time you will create links, we will see an adjustment within the EBVs, and then you will be able to compare yourself. So it is possible to have a flock that is not linked with others. It is possible to get genetic improvement, but be careful when you want to compare yourself with others, because if you don't have any blood type with other flock, the comparison isn't that accurate as you wish.
Amelie, we've got to wrap up. We only have a couple more minutes left.
Pardon me?
We have to wrap up. We only have a couple minutes left.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm close to finish. So I'll present you quickly the new report we will have to come within the year. So they are interactive reports. They are updated once a week and they allow benchmark. So you have some graph that show you the production of your ewes separated by the parity. So we have for parity 1, parity 2, and parity 3 and more. And we have it separated for different days and milk. And you can also remove lines and be able to have benchmarks. So you are able, for example, to see for your ewes from first parity that are in the days and milk before 80 days. What the milk production of your animals? What is the milk production of the top animal we have within the GenOvis program? And what are the bottom 25% of animal we have within the GenOvis program? So this is a new tool for producer to be able to benchmark their performance with other producer. We also have information about somatic cell count. So for the different test day you have the average of the flock, the number of few and the number of ewes that have higher than 200 somatic cell count at the sampling. And we have a list of animals that have very high count of somatic cell count, for which you have where they are in days and milk, how many cell count they have, and the percentage of somatic cell count they account to within your molding. We have also information about the inventory. So you have the average production index, the average component index for the use of your flock and all their breeding value. But you have also some information about their performance. So thank you for your attention. For those that are interested, you can find a lot of information from the Dairy Sheep Association of North America. I put here the email address if you are interested to learn more about this. A lot of information, but also access to many presentations for their members. If you want to have more information about the genetic evaluation program, you can visit our website at genovis.ca. We have 3 new videos for the reproducer to explain what's EBVs and the kind of stock I presented today. And if you have any question, I will be pleased to respond to you. You can contact me by email or by phone. Thank you.
Thanks, Amelie. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. So. All right, we need to wrap things up here. So thank you very much. It was great to have you. We appreciate you very much taking the time to do the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.